Welcome to the WPL Book Drop Podcast. I'm your host, Becky Miller, Circulation and Marketing Assistant at the Waterloo Public Library, reluctant survivor in the event of a zombie apocalypse or societal collapse, recent watcher of Station 11 on HBO Max, and nap enthusiast. Joining us today is new Waterloo Councilperson Nia Wilder. Her favorite food is cereal. Her favorite season is fall. And when she wakes up in the morning, she thinks she looks like an old man. Don't we all look like an old man in the morning?
I mean, we should.
Yeah.
That's the only way to wake up, with your eyes halfway glued together and your face all scrunched up. That's how you know you got the best sleep of your life.
Yeah.
So if you don't wake up looking like that, you did not get what you needed.
That's right. No offense to old men if you're listening.
Yeah, you guys look great. I'm honored to look like you when I wake up.
Well, welcome, Nia.
Thank you.
Since this is the first time you're joining us on the podcast, could you tell our listeners a little bit about you? What are your passions?
Yes. Okay, so hello, everyone in the listening world. My name is Nia Wilder. And as Becky said, I am a newly elected Ward 3 Councilwoman. However, prior to that, I was an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, if you will. I did photography, videography, mentorship. I had my own clothing brand that was being sold in all 4 of the Cedar Valley Hy-Vees. And now I have my own store in Crossroads Mall where we cater to local brands and entrepreneurs.
That is awesome.
Yes.
So what types of things do you have in your store?
So at Sparklot, we have 41 different small businesses in there that we house. And we have shoes, clothing, accessories, healing crystals, tea, baby clothes, artwork. Like, there's nothing that we don't have at Sparklot.
Wow.
We have a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that sounds like you could find like the perfect gift for whoever's on your list.
Yes, we have greeting cards that are custom made by a young lady named Miss Rita, and it's called the Paper Peddler is what her brand is, and she has these notebooks that she makes by hand, these little gift baskets or gift boxes made out of paper, and so you can come in there and find anything for any season for anyone.
Wow, and when did the store open?
We opened November 5th.
Wow, so it's been a few months now.
Yes, it's been a few months since we've been down at Crossroads Mall. We're on the lower level connected to the at-home store. And we're there Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Sundays, 12 to 5.
So what have you learned since you've opened your business down there? I'm sure it's like been a lot.
The one thing that I learned with putting my business in Crossroads is you have to have tough skin and you have to be resilient. There are many people that come in like, well, this is a great idea, but why'd you put it in here? Like you hear stuff like that often, and you just have to stay grounded in, you know what you did, and you know that the reason is for not. You know that there's a reason for it. And so the one thing that I've learned is you got to be resilient. And you have to make sure that when you have a passion or a vision or a dream that you just push through no matter who doubts you or who thinks what, because you know why you're walking in it. And that's the most important thing. As long as you know why you make the decisions that you do, just stay focused. So I've learned to stay more focused.
That's good. What is the name of the business again?
Sparklot.
Sparklot.
Yes.
What gave
Sparklot.
you the idea to do Sparklot?
It started with me having all of my merchandise all over my basement and all over my living room, and I realized that my house was becoming my business. And then that makes it harder for you to go home when business is at home all the time. And I wanted to make sure I could separate the two. And so as I was thinking about it, I was talking to a couple of my other entrepreneur friends, and they were like, yeah, my product is all over the house too. And I'm like, I should probably just get us a store where we can all have our product. And initially I had a goal of 25 resellers, and so to reach over 40 has been a dream. It's great.
It's almost like everyone has this side hustle kind of thing, and then
Yes.
all of a sudden it becomes so much that
Yes.
you've got to like grow with it.
It becomes a business. It
Yeah.
goes from a side hustle to a business to a brand. Then they call it small businesses, and now we're I don't like to try. Now we're merging into bigger businesses. Not that I don't like to try. My mom always says, I'll raise you try for a do.
All right.
So I don't really like to try. I just
Do.
want to go do it.
That's awesome. You were recently sworn in as the Waterloo councilperson representing Ward 3, like you mentioned. What made you want to become a Waterloo councilperson, and what are your hopes for Waterloo?
To be honest, I hadn't woken up like, I'm going to be a councilwoman today. And my life has taken so many twists and turns to where I never envisioned myself to be a councilwoman just because I didn't feel like I fit that mold, whatever that mold was. I just didn't think it was me. And so when I got approached with the idea to potentially run for city council, I kind of looked at them like, are you sure you meant to ask me this? Because I'm a little rugged. I'm this brown girl with these locks. How do you think our community is going to respond to someone like me? And they were like, you're exactly what we need. I was already mentoring at-risk youth. I was already speaking love and light into my community. I was always on the forefront of whatever they needed anyway. And running for city council was a way for me to expand that service and to really make sure we have a seat at the table and our voices are being heard and we are where we need to be. And so that's what inspired me to run. And what I hope for Waterloo is we can build a genuine sense of community, because Waterloo already has a very diverse community, but you have certain pockets of the community all kind of over the place. And what my hope is, we can build one solid, sound community, and we're moving all together. It doesn't have to be the same purpose or the same why, but we can figure out how our whys and our purposes connect and then use that to grow our city. So that's my hope.
I love that. The reason that we have you on the podcast today is to promote your visit to the Waterloo Public Library for Black History Month. You're going to be joining our story time. For listeners that don't know, every February we do a special Black History Month family story time. That's usually on every Saturday, so we'll be doing that again. And we have you as a guest reader. So we're looking forward to that, and that's going to be on Saturday, February 19th, and this is going to be an in-person story time. So we're looking forward to your visit.
Yes.
So in thinking about story time for children, when you think about your childhood years, what books did you most enjoy reading?
Okay, if we're talking about childhood, I used to read Judy Blume, not Judy and the Bloom. I used to read Judy Blume books. I read books like, I loved The Hungry Caterpillar. I could read it over and over again. There was a book that our school made for us, and it was called Just for Me, or Just Like Me. And in the book, it featured our best friends, our name. And so I loved reading that book over and over again because I felt like I was the story. But if we're talking about what I like to read now, I have a book that I read in the morning, and then I have a book that I read at night. The book that I read in the morning is called Finish What You Start. I notice a lot of times in my life I procrastinate, just like the average human. And sometimes I'll start a project and then I'll get excited about it and then it'll give me another idea and then I'll jump to the next one. And so I found this book called Finish What You Start, where it gives you a guide on how to start something and actually execute it, then move to the next thing. And so it's helping me grow a lot. And then the book I read at night is called The Laws of Thinking. And it goes through the different, like the law of passion, the law of words, the law of language, the law of thinking, of course, the law of habit. And it just teaches you the different ways to be in these different categories. But I haven't made it all the way through that book. I jump around different chapters.
Oh, sure. So would you say that you read mostly nonfiction then? Kind of like a self-help, like new ways of thinking about things, philosophy?
Yeah, because as a kid, I didn't read as much. And then even going into my adult life, I wasn't very much of a reader. But I wanted to learn more words and I wanted to expand the way that I speak. And so I'm like, okay, Nia, you at least have to dedicate 30 minutes a day to an hour to reading and really growing your mind. And so I read whatever pulls me in. Like at one point I was reading the entire Child Called It series. Like I was invested. I couldn't take my eyes off the page. When I read Finish What You Start, there was a book that I read called The Game of Life and How to Play It. I couldn't take my eyes away from the pages. So some books just really pull me in, and then others I'm like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to finish this audiobook.
Do you stop? Can you stop a book? Or some people have that struggle, like they start it and they're like, well, I have to finish it. The author worked hard on this. I have to finish it. Or you just feel like I started something, I have to finish it. Or can you be one that walks away?
I can walk away. I used to think, like, when I was really getting involved with reading, I had to read the whole book through. But my big cousin, he has a library that is huge, and he told me, like, that's why they made chapters. Depending on what book you're reading, you can look at the chapter list and figure out what resonates to you in that moment, and then just read that, because that'll help you be able to retain it if you're able to connect it to who you are and what you're looking for at that time. And so I read by chapters. I'll go through the chapters and see what I feel like I need, and then that's what I'll read.
That's good. I hadn't thought about doing that. I usually just like, okay, I have to start here, and then I go all the way to the end. I have gotten better, though. I've stopped reading books that, like, you get to a certain point, it's like, okay, I can go along with you, and then you're just like, okay, that's it. We're done here.
Time to go. It was great.
Yeah. I recently read a book called Dedicated: The Case for Commitment in an Age of Infinite Browsing. And that's by Pete Davis, and that's about making a commitment, because in today's world, it seems like there's like a whole menu of options that you can choose from. When you open your phone or you turn on your phone, there's all these apps staring you in the face, and you can just pick and choose back and forth, and sometimes it's not really a conscious choice. And some of the argument that the author makes is that there are a lot of young people in particular that kind of were raised in this idea that you can do one job for like a year or two and then skip to the next, and then you kind of go all over, but you're not really sticking it out and committing to things like you could. And he makes kind of the argument about like how we've had changes, whether it's civil rights or voting rights. I guess it's kind of the same thing, but it takes a long time to make things change. But without people sitting there and working on the one thing, then it doesn't happen. So his whole argument is you've got to find something, even if it's one small thing. Say it's you want to have a tree in every yard in your community. Like if you can stick with one thing, you can make a big change. And so like the book that you were talking about where you start something and you finish it. I was kind of thinking the same thing. It's like, okay, pick something, stick with it. If you can commit to it, you can make a big difference.
Yes. And sometimes it's hard to stick to one thing. Like even now, I still struggle with staying on one thing. And so what I did was I found this notebook when I was shopping at Staples, and it's a projects planner. And in the very beginning, it has a chapter page where you can write down the project page and what the project is called. And then like midway to the book, you have one side, it's to-do list. The other side, it says overview, supply list, and steps. And so now what I've learned to do is whatever project comes to my mind, I'll just put it in the book. And then I'll write down a couple things for it, and then I'll just get back to it later. So at least I have, when you do want to start on this project, you know what steps you have to take to complete it, and then you can start with going through it. But right now, you can't touch it. Write it down, go back to it later, but don't touch it. Because as soon as I get involved, I'm in.
Right. You don't want to like overcommit to all these different things.
Yes.
You have to like carefully choose your commitment.
Yes. And so I'll just go in, I'll write it down, and then I'll hop back to it later. But it does help when you pick one thing. I know it's difficult. Like when you were talking about the jobs, when I was younger, I was one of those people that I started a job and then I realized, this might not be for me. Then I went to the next one, and then I was like, I don't really like this one either.
Yep.
And then I finally realized you should probably be an entrepreneur because I don't think you like jobs.
You go work for yourself.
I had to work for myself, and it's been the best thing that I've ever done. It's been the best thing.
That is awesome.
Entrepreneurship it's the key.
So what would you, if you have advice for someone that's wanting to think about becoming an entrepreneur, what would you say is helpful when you're starting out?
When you're starting out, I'll say treat it like my project planner. Write it down. Write down the steps that it'll take to complete it and what you'll need to do, and then see if it's something that you want to go forward with. Because sometimes you realize, that's a little too much, I don't want to do it. Or, oh yeah, that's exactly what I expected, I'm going to go forward. So I would just say, do your research on what it is you want to do and make sure that it ties into why you exist. Because if you don't connect those two things, you're going to be making decisions that are not going to last in your life because it doesn't fit what you really want to be doing. And so make sure whatever you do, it connects to your purpose and it connects to your why.
That's awesome. What has helped you as you've become a entrepreneur? Like, who do you reach out to like start? Like, what books do you read, or where do you begin?
First, I call my mom. I'm one of those. I'll call my mom or someone in my family and just tell them about what I'm thinking about doing, and then I'll reach out to one of my mentors. I have a pool of women and men that I call or text when I'm thinking of this brilliant idea, because then they could either be like, Nia, come down, or they'll be like, no, that's great, let's put some power into that. And so I'll reach out to my network and see if the idea or the vision even holds, or if it fills a service. You don't want to create something that no one needs.
Right.
You want to make sure that you're filling a need and that you have a service that people can really gravitate towards no matter what. Those are my first steps. Then I sit with myself and figure out, do you have time to create something else? Should you be focusing on something that you've already started? And if the answer is yes, then I put it on the list and then I keep going. Mm-hmm. And so make sure it fits your why, and make sure you have time for it. Those are my main things that I do first.
And then work with those networks, and then do your research to see if it's going to fit with the community and what they need.
And then we go big.
All right.
And then we go big. If it fills a need, we're going big.
Awesome. Well, Nia, thank you so much for joining the WPL Book Drop podcast. It's really been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And I do want to say, since I am newly elected, if there's anyone that lives, hopefully I can say this, if there's anyone that lives in Ward 3, I will be doing my ward meetings on the last Sunday of every month. For more information, you can visit my website, and that's niawilder.com. And if you have any concerns or praises or anything like that that you want to give to the city or that you need me to know about, please be sure to reach out to me. I am one phone call away. Can I say my phone number?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Tell it phone number.
My phone number is area code 515-447-6590. Just give me a call or go to my website, like I said, niawilder.com, and I will be sure to get right with you.
That is awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
If you like today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you.